idea, Kurt. Gee, please. Sir, go ahead.
Tim Loren, our Director of Parks and Rec, would you lead us in the...
Be happy to.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the October 10th Shawnee County Board of County Commissioners meeting. On my right is Commissioner Kevin Cook, representing District 2, and on my left, Commissioner Mays, representing District 3. And I'm Bill Rippon, Chair, Commissioner for District 1. And what's first on our agenda?
The first item is item 3, consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of the consent agenda as presented. I would note item number 12, which is a renewal contract with the sheriff for Tyler Technologies, just noting that it is a combination of the Sheriff's Office, the Department of Corrections, the Topeka Police, and the Topeka Fire Department. So this is an interagency a contract for the Tyler software. But I would move for approval as presented.
I'll second that. It's been moved by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item 4, new business. A, County Clerk number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Mr. Chairman, this morning we have vouchers that total $395,455.05. The highlights out of that voucher report is the Kelly Construction under pass-through of $111,114.27. That was for the East Topeka Learning Center. We also had holding accounts with the state of Kansas of $77,522.72. And then the next largest item on the vouchers is Parks and Recreation of $47,178.26. I do not have any questions regarding the vouchers and would move for their approval.
And second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next,
Item A2, consider correction orders.
I would move that we approve the correction orders.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Rippon and seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item B, Public Works number 1, consider approval of request for a project budget of $5,842,310 for the improvement of Southeast 45th Street between Southeast Barrington Road, West Edge Road, and East Edge Road, with funding from various sources.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Niehaus, Director of Public Works. Right now, as you know, Southeast 29th Street from the KTA to Wittenberg is under construction. By contract, that has to complete by Friday, December 4th of this year. Next year in 2020, we work on the Wittenberg to Croco segment of Southeast 29th. By contract, that has to complete by Friday, December 6th, 2020. That brings us to 2021. And we would like to start work on Southeast 45th Street. And more specifically, we would like to work on the segment which we think is the most important, and it encompasses the intersections of West Edge Road to East Edge Road. So before I talk about the budget, I'd like to go over the project real briefly and discuss some items with you on the project. I think it's important that the commission be educated and knowledgeable on the project in case there are questions from the public. And obviously, you wouldn't want to approve a budget if you didn't agree with the project. So this starts at the west end of the project. And what you see is a roundabout at West Edge Road. Right now, it's just a simple intersection. And to the left of the roundabout, we have a box structure. And that is one of the reasons that we want to do this segment of the project. We're going to have 2 bridge-side structures on this project. Structures are expensive. We want to get these bridge structures replaced. So right now we have a single 14 by 12 box. We want to replace it by a double 14 by 12. That will give us a 100-year overtopping on Southeast 45th Street. Again, we have a roundabout. This single lane roundabout. This roundabout is consistent with the roundabout at California and Croco. So it's consistent with this segment of Southeast 45th Street. The park has a sign, a kind of a sign in this area here. Our project will not disturb that. Continuing, I talked about the box structure to the west of the roundabout. This is it right here. Again, it's not sized for what we need, so we need to replace this structure. Basically, we're going to double the size of it. In addition, this structure would not load rate very well. Okay, that takes us into the heart of this project. One thing I want you to know about, and I didn't say in the last slide, but we have some landowners here at the west end of the project. During construction, they can get access to Barrington Road, so we will not need to accommodate them during construction. One of the highlights of the project is we're going to remove the Parks and Rec trail in the lake, near the Lake Shawnee Golf Course. We're going to bring that up close to the road, and that will solve the grade issues on the existing trail. The existing road is 2 lanes. Near West Edge Road, it widens to 3 lanes with a dedicated right turn lane. Our project will consist of 1 through lane in each direction and a center turn lane. And that takes me to the next slide. And as we move to the east, I do want to say that during construction, we have to accommodate 3 parcels, local access to 3 parcels only. Again, looking at the trail, we will replace the trail that we have down here with one up close to the roadway. The trail, 10-foot wide, it will be 8 foot. The nearest part of the trail to the back of curb will be separated by 8 foot, so we do not think a barrier will be necessary. And Parks and Rec is okay with that. And when we get on a bridge here, the trail will widen to 12 feet. On the south side, we have a 5-foot sidewalk that will widen to 6 feet. The existing structure, I'll have a picture of it here next, is a stone arch bridge. We think it has no historical value. It's been widened. We're going to replace this with a 100-foot span pre-stressed concrete bridge. Again, it'll pass a 100-year storm. That takes us to the intersection at East Edge Road. We will continue the sidewalk where we tie in to the existing trail. And even though there's a trail crossing up here, we will add a crossing down here also near the intersection to accommodate those people that may come from the east. This is the stone structure that we're going to replace with a pre-stressed concrete bridge.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Kurt, when they widened 45th Street and did that with the bridge, there was a lot of work that went into maintaining the bridge so that it would still have its historical qualities. When we worked on 29th Street, there was a lot of concern about the WPA bridge that we took out, and there was great care taken that when we have the precast structure, that it would have a similar appearance of the rock with, and then adding the lights to the corners. Are we going to be taking that same level of care on 45th Street so that it has the character? I mean, there's a lot of people have a very fond memories, and again, these are where memories and utilitarian come into play, but very fond memories of that bridge and a lot of, are we going to preserve the heritage, or are we just going to go with something completely different?
Well, from a preserving the heritage standpoint, we can document the structure. If we have to, we can document the structure like we did on the old Deer Creek Spillway structure. But we do not plan at this point to maintain the appearance of that structure. Our new structure will be more of a traditional modern girder bridge, and so it will not maintain the appearance. And part of the reason for that is we're talking about a 100-foot span, clear span. I don't think we have too many options for an arch-type structure with that kind of a span length.
But when we did the 29th Street, we were able to do a triple barrel, and it was precast, and it had the rock appearance.
It did. It
Why
did.
would we not be able to do is it going to be a single barrel or a double barrel?
It will be a single span. It'll be a clear span. And what the advantage that gives you, if you have a wall within the channel area, that's an opportunity for that structure to collect debris. So the open span situation that we're proposing with the replacement bridge will give you a clear opening that will not collect debris. As you can see in that picture, I think this picture obviously is looking to the south. Look at all the trees and brush in the creek area. That has the potential for catching on any interior walls that you have within that stream. Now at Deer Creek it wasn't a problem because the only thing feeding it was the spillway.
Right.
And the spillway clears the stream of all that debris. So here we have kind of a different situation. At this point, we think a single clear span is the best way to go.
In the design build of the bridge, is there just no way to have some throwback to what was there?
Sure we can. We can do a rail that maybe emulates what we have on the Deer Creek Bridge. There's a number of things that we can do of a more ancillary nature that can preserve kind of the feel of the structure, but probably not the overall appearance of the structure.
I know Commissioner Rippon, you've worked on a number of preservation projects and also updating projects from a park standpoint. Your thoughts?
It would be nice to have a little flavor of the old bridge on there, and, you know, I know we're not replicating this, of course with a clear span, but maybe if we had some stone on the edges, or maybe something with the railing, it would give us that flavor of what was there before, so that could probably be done.
So, yeah, just something that, again, people are very sentimental. That's a human nature, and a lot of people that grow up in that area or visit back in that area, they like seeing that we can still preserve some of our heritage.
Excellent. Thank you. And we'll sure give it our best shot at doing that.
I had a question. You said you had you had 8 feet of space between the new trail and the street. When you're on the bridge, is there some kind of a
There will be
physical
a barrier separating, by requirement, AASHTO requirement, there will be a barrier separating the 12-foot trail from the roadway.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the sidewalk moves in close to the roadway, obviously, so.
And the trail that we're now abandoning, will that be removed as part of this?
It will removed in full, including the bridge across the finger.
Okay.
Yeah, it will be fully removed. Anything, when we tie into it, anything between those tie-in points will be fully removed and eradicated. There will be no bridge there. And I think that's a good thing, because the bridge at some point's going to require maintenance. And this is just another bridge that the Parks and Rec doesn't have to worry about.
We might just make a note or Tim Laurent might make a note to preserve the ghost bike that is on that trail and find a spot for it, just as a memory of those that were injured and killed.
Public Works has already talked about that, and we're in the process of establishing communications on that very issue, so.
I have one other question.
Yes, sir.
The bridge that's in the golf course, do you know what the condition of that bridge is?
I do not, no. Tim, do you have any better insight?
I do not know what condition it is.
My thought was if that bridge is in bad shape, maybe the golf trail could come up and use the bridge that's currently on the trail and then back, you know what I'm saying? Is I don't know what the condition of that bridge is in the golf course, but maybe the golf path could come up and use the bridge that we have now for the trail and then go back. So I just don't know what the condition
I
of it.
think that the trail that's being used for the golf
Oh, Tim,
path
if you
is
want to come up.
actually in better condition.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that trail, if I don't have the pointer. Yeah, Tim Laurent, Shawnee County Parks and Recreation Department. Let me see your pointer. This trail, or this bridge, is in better condition than
Okay,
this bridge.
that's all
So
I
I think
know.
it's just a no-brainer to remove this
Sure.
one and concentrate on this.
Okay.
Very good, thanks, Tim. Okay, so again, on the south side, we've got 3 parcels we're going to have to accommodate during construction. We'll have the sidewalk crossing near the intersection at East Edge. We'll have the new bridge. And then at the east end of the project, we'll slowly transition back to the existing roadway. As you can see, the sidewalk will continue to the east to the limits of the project. And then someday in the future, when we do this segment from the end here to the Croco roundabout, we'll continue that sidewalk further. So that kind of completes my talk about the project itself. Now, one of the things that I think is important is Public Works wants to close this road during construction. And I've got it, you see there's a number of reasons there. Number one, it's a relatively short project, 2,900 feet. To give you a perspective, Southeast 29th that we're presently working on is 6,600 feet long. And the detour, we have a detour in mind. It would be Croco Road to the north, Southeast 29th, which will be complete then, and then south along California Avenue. That's a 6-mile detour, but it really only adds 4 miles of additional travel to their home. There's township roads that are in great shape, especially in Monmouth Township where Shawnee County maintains them. There's county roads. So there's a tremendous number of options for people to get to their home. They know the community. They know the alternate routes. Again, I talked about it. We need to accommodate local access for only 3 parcels. Compare that to Southeast 29th, where we had probably 40 to 50 parcels. We had businesses along the north side of the road. That's a really differentiation between Southeast 45th and Southeast 29th. Closure does not set a precedent. When we did Southeast 45th from Topeka Avenue to California over a 2-year period here a few years ago, we had full closures then. It permits, and this is really important, closing this road permits the shortest construction period. We anticipate approximately 9.5 months at the least cost. If you want this project done under a phased construction, we're talking significantly more dollars, 30 to 40%, and at least 2 years of construction. I shouldn't say at least 2 years. 2 years will accommodate it. So by 2021, the county Public Works will have just enough money to do this phase of the project. If you want phased construction and allow traffic to travel through the construction zone during construction, we are talking about a delay due to money issues and redesign. And I talk about that. That's the next bullet. It permits construction. If we close the road, it permits construction to start in 2021 rather than being delayed by 1 or 2 years to accommodate the greater construction costs and design delays. And an ancillary to that is it solves the grade-related issues in the park trail sooner than later. And then we've talked about this stone structure. It is such that it may not accommodate partial removal and phased construction of a replacement bridge. That's one thing you have to remember about Southeast 29th. We closed Southeast 29th when we removed the existing Deer Creek structure and replaced it because that existing structure would not accommodate phased construction. This stone arch may be the same way. Another thing that's important is if you've got traffic moving through the work zone next to the workers, it's a public and worker safety issue. Why start with this segment of West Edge Road to East Edge? I mean, we're talking, really what we're thinking about future is California to Croco. That's a segment of Southeast 45th that we haven't completed that we need to get completed. Why this segment first? Well, really the most important reason is it completes the most expensive segment of the road first. The bridges, the roundabout, they contribute to an increased construction cost. We get those out of the way. Again, I'll talk about it again. It solves the grade-related issues in the park trail sooner than later. And having that roundabout at West Edge in place will help us as we go forward in the future and do the remaining phases or segments between California and Croco. And think about our 4th of July festivities at Lake Shawnee. Wouldn't it be nice to have that roundabout in place so people can take Barrington Road north into the southern part of the park? If we do this part, again, which is the most complex and most expensive, when I say expensive, I'm talking about dollars per unit length. Then the future projects, I think the future segments are going to be relatively simple and inexpensive. So that completes my presentation. Now talking about the budget, we're talking about a total budget of $5.8 million, and that includes construction, design, construction engineering, which is inspection during construction, right-of-way acquisition, utility relocation. I might remind everyone that rock is real close to the surface in parts of this project. Rock excavation is expensive. And then we've got contingencies. How are we going to pay for the project? Well, if you look at the last page, or the second to the last page of your submittal, a project this size, it just doesn't come from one funding source. We've got to kind of scrabble to get money together. We're using money from the Federal Exchange Program, 3 years worth, 1/2 cent sales tax money, special bridge, special highway. Parks and Rec has kindly donated $200,000 to the project, knowing that they benefit from the trail replacement. Gary Ormsby Drive, if you recall, we had quite a good amount of money that was residual left over from that project. And then we have some operating funds that will be available. And then finally, project timeline. We anticipate letting this project in February, January of 2021, basically starting work in February and completing by the 1st of December. With that, I'll take your questions. Any additional questions you might have?
Yes.
So we established the project budget today. Bidding process, you would anticipate in 2020?
Early 2021, January of 2021.
For the bidding process?
Yeah, well, I don't know, we may put it out for bids in late December, but we won't open bids until probably January of 2021.
Okay. And then starting construction?
February.
Okay, so if a company is bidding on it, that's a very short period of time before the bid and then the start of the project.
We will follow the usual timelines on the bidding practices. That won't be a problem. And one, you bring up a good point, Kevin. We're going to be finishing up Southeast 29th in late 2020.
Right.
It doesn't take, it's not very far that the contractor can move their equipment from Southeast 29th to Southeast 45th.
Right. If it's the same contract.
If it's the same contractor. Yeah, if.
When we work on July in the spirit of Kansas, I think just a lot of coordination with all the folks that are coming out for the lake. And if it's still at the lake, looking forward a couple of years down the road, we need to kind of keep in mind our construction and timeline. But my question was, what about Rockfire? You talked about there's only 3 parcels.
Yeah,
that
we
would be
won't be
affected.
going all the way to Rockfire, so it won't be a problem this time around.
All right. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
What's your pleasure?
I move for approval of the project budget as requested.
I would second that. The motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item B2, consider approval of request to award bids for materials to be used during winter 2019-2020 for snow and ice removal operations to the following. A, Scottwood Industries, Inc. for 20,000 gallons of calcium chloride at a cost of $23,100 with funding from the Road Maintenance Fund. And B, Mid-States Materials LLC for 12,000 tons of sand at a cost of $100,800 with funding dependent upon the location of use from the Public Works, Monmouth Township, and Grove Township Road Maintenance Funds and Facilities Operation, Management Operation Budget.
Courtney House, Director of Public Works. These 2 commodities will be used during snow and ice events during this winter of 2019-2020. The sand we use singly or in combination with salt to clear the roadways of snow and ice. The calcium chloride is used on occasion. The benefits of the calcium chloride, it melts ice at a lower temperature than sodium chloride. So on occasion when we have really cold weather and
A lot of communities went to beet alternatives to the sodium several years ago, and then it was a big splash at the time. We don't hear a lot about it currently. the current rule of thumb in the public works perspective as to what's the best use?
Well, I think the beet juice or the other exotic products give you some advantages, but for the county, I think the additional costs would be more than outweighed by the, well, what I'm trying to say is salt provides us such a benefit that I don't think it would be worth the extra cost to buy the other products. So I think in certain situations, certain communities, mostly urban, beet juice, the other Clearview or Clear Zone, whatever products they are, they may give you some advantages, but I don't think it's worth the increase in costs in the county.
All right. Thank you.
I'll move that we approve.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next item.
Item C, Information Technology, number 1, consider authorization and execution of the following for an emergency purchase for a licensing renewal of software paid from the Information Technology 2019 budget, contract C361 2019 with Network Computing Solutions for renewal of VMware something or other, he'll tell you what it is, license at a cost of $23,305.28.
Good morning, Commissioners. Pat O'Blander with the Information Technology Department. Cindy, forgive us for all of our acronyms
Yes,
and funny names. I know they're difficult, but it's difficult for us to keep them straight as well. But the county has 2 VBlock systems which support all of the virtual implementations for a lot of critical servers for the county. Those platforms necessarily have software licenses that are required in order to keep everything up and running. The IT department is in the process of doing the annual renewal on those licenses, and we've run into some complications with getting those renewals done in a timely fashion. One of those licenses is our VMware licenses. We've had significant difficulties with one of the vendors that we were working with to try to get our licenses renewed, and we were unable to get it done in a fashion that gets us renewed in time before those licenses expire. So we took the step of getting 3 quotes from 3 other vendors that were able to get us the information we needed. And I'm asking for permission from the commissioners to move forward with an emergency purchase to get that license renewed immediately and not incur further delays as we try to work through the licensing issues. We did have a visit with the vendor that we were working with to get these licenses renewed for VMware yesterday. We did come to the conclusion that we're not going to be able to get it done through that group. So I still want to go ahead with an emergency purchase through Network Computing Solutions to get this particular license renewed as soon as is possible. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
You did go through audit finance and work with Director Griner?
Yes, I did explain the
office
situation to,
as to why it's an emergency purchase.
yes, yes.
I'll move for approval.
I'll second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Item D, Human Resources, number 1, consider approval of resolution number 2019-76, establishing a flexible benefits cafeteria plan for Shawnee County employees, and resolution 2019-77, setting the non-taxable employer contribution.
Good morning, Commissioners. Angela Lewis with Human Resources. You have before you the cafeteria plan, as well as the increase to the department's contribution to the benefits plan. It would go from $812 to $840. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any discussion? I would move that we approve.
Second.
Okay. Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next.
Item D2, consider approval of the following increases to the employee contribution rate for the 2020 health benefit plan year. A, 50 cents per pay period for employee only. B, $4 per pay period for employee child. C, $6.50 per pay period for employee spouse. And D, $9.50 per pay period for employee family.
Good morning, Commissioners. Angela Lewis with Human Resources again. Our insurance committee met in July and unanimously voted to suggest a 3.5% increase to the employee contribution rate. You just approved the department's contribution, which was budgeted in the 2020 budget. Our totals for last year, and I'm going to bring your attention to what the employees contributed. It was $24 for a single employee last year, and that's the bottom one. $212, and these are monthly costs for an employee child, $377 for an employee spouse, and $543 for an employee family. You'll see the 3.5% increase here, which amounts to $1 for a single person, $220 is the total for employee child, $390 for employee spouse, and $562 for a family. Again, that brings us to what the new charges are: 50 cents per pay period or $1 a month, $4 per pay period or $8 a month, $6.50 per pay period or $13 a month, or $9.50 per pay period and $19 a month. Our benefits are really good here in Shawnee County. We do a great job of keeping the insurance low, not only for the contribution from the department, but also for the contribution from the employee. And that's because of the committee going out and doing that work and working with our insurance companies to make sure that we keep the plan steady. We have a comparison here between another government public entity and what we're paying versus what they're paying. If you look at the single employee cost, we're paying $25 a month compared to their $76 a month. You'll see that across the board, our departments pay the same amount, $840, while other departments share a different cost, sometimes a lot more, depending on the premium. This is the comparison with the other entity. $220 a month versus, a plan that they don't have, because it's not always apples to apples with insurance plans. $390 for employee spouse. They do have that plan, but again, the department is taking the brunt of that. And then employee family, $562 versus their $424. But again, the department taking the brunt of that. We've worked very hard to keep the prices low, and we'd hope that you'd approve the recommendation from the insurance committee. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We're not talking about the retirees, but whatever we do here will usually spill over to the retirees. How will this affect the retirees plan?
If you remember last year, we set the rates at, I believe, 120%, and they don't change. Now, when the insurance costs go up, it's at the same percentage, but they still don't pay above the 120%. Okay. So while it is an increase, it's an increase for everyone across the board. Is it 125? I'm sorry, 125%. It was the maximum rate. That way we knew we wouldn't have to change it for retirees.
Questions?
Angela, looking at this chart here in the comparison, it looks like we're quite a bit lower on the employee only, and then a little bit higher on some of the others. Is there a reason why we do that?
It's really the contribution overall. You see that our employer contribution, this is what the departments are paying each month. And this next slide shows the total premium. If you look at the total premiums, they're a little different. Ours are lower overall for all of them when you look at the total premium contribution for both. But the higher contribution from the employee is because the department is paying a steady rate across the board. And that's easier for budgeting purposes. And also when you start thinking about the budgeting and employing people, you don't want to ever have someone in a position where they're thinking, how much is the insurance going to cost my department now? You keep that steady. It's an even playing field for everyone, no matter what they choose, if they choose anything at all.
I guess sort of to kind of follow that up, I guess what I'm asking is why are we doing a 3.5% across the board rather than, maybe bringing the employee only up a little bit, and then because when it's a percentage of the price, obviously it makes a bigger difference on the employee family and than it does on the employee only.
Not only was it the recommendation of the insurance committee, but also our consultant to keep it at this level, so we take into consideration what they ask us to do. If that's something you'd like us to look at it in the future, we certainly could.
I think maybe a little bit more like consideration as to the impact on each individual class, you know, maybe next year when this comes around again.
We can
Be good.
certainly take a look at that.
Got a motion?
I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
All right.
Thank you.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner May. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item E, corrections. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C 363-2019 with Aramark Correctional Services for provision of food services.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Phelps, Shawnee County Department of Corrections. This item you have before you is the work of about 11 months of RFPing and developing specs and examining the bids that we received. And now we finally have a contract with Aramark that we want to propose that will actually save us from current prices about $100,000 at our latest meal rate. I'd be happy to answer any of the questions that you have.
With the renovations that we did to the kitchen 2 years ago, how much of our food is actually being prepared on-site as opposed to pre-prepared that's being brought in?
We presently prepare all of our food. We only bring in the ingredients. We make our own bread, we prepare all of our meals, and it's all planned out so that the meal service and the ingredients are laid out 6 meals ahead, and that way it stays efficient and you don't waste as much food.
Okay. In the past, there's been concerns from different maybe inmates or inmates' family about the amount of the sodium content or the looking at the healthiness. And as we look at our community health assessment and trying to even instill our healthy eating practices down to the Department of Corrections, how does Aramark take into account that same food diagram?
Well, they actually lean more toward the improving the nutritional value. They have a dietitian that examines the meals, sets out all of the content. They don't have real high sodium content in the inmate meals. If the inmates are going to get a higher level of what you might call junk food items, they would purchase it on the commissary. Now, on their actual meals, it's all nutritionally sound.
And then the quantities are measured out on a dietary calorie scale?
Yes, it is, and they have, you know, an actual service process. They have different size scoops that they use to make sure it's the right quantity, and they make sure that they have an average of 2,800 calories a day for adults, and I think 3,300 calories a day for juveniles. It's structured differently to make sure it's more nutritional for juveniles.
Do you have any other questions?
Currently is our contract with Aramark.
Yes, it is, sir.
Okay. You've been satisfied with their
Very much
service?
so. And they even, I was a little bit intrigued by the fact that they managed to get the price down from what they currently have, so it was a win.
I'll move that we approve this contract.
Second.
Been moved by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you,
Next item.
Commissioner.
Item F, Parks and Recreation. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C 364-2019 with Bettis Asphalt and Construction, Inc. for repairs to the Landon Trail Bridge near Southeast 27th and South Kansas Avenue at a cost of $293,311, with $115,943.50 in funding from the Excess Reserve Fund and $177,367.50 in funding from the Building Maintenance Fund.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Boyd, Parks and Recreation. We are coming to get your approval for this contract to get this bridge replaced or repaired so that we can get the trail open back up in the spring. This is a picture. Actually, the condition has gotten worse with the wet year that we've had. We've had more erosion behind that abutment right there. But the plan still holds to drive pilings in on the sides and recreate the abutment to support the bridge.
John, does the new design, does it incorporate some kind of jetty or something to kind of redirect the water away from the abutments, or are they armored in such a fashion we're not gonna have to do this again? And
There was some armoring on the sides of the piling, sheet pilings, but we were in such a narrow area that we would have had to go considerably upstream and downstream to do armoring on that. So at this point in time, we're just fixing the abutment with armoring around the pilings.
did the engineers feel like this is gonna last and this is gonna be a permanent solution to this?
That's the plan, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Timeline for construction?
Upon approval, the schedule is to start November 1 and be completed at least by April 30th, if not sooner.
I'll move for approval.
I'll second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Next item.
Item G, Health Department, number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-365-2019 with Waubonsee County for women, infant, and children WIC services to be provided by the Shawnee County Health Department in the amount of $4,342 paid by the Kansas Department of Health and Environment for the period of October 1, 2019 through September 30, 2020.
Good morning, Commissioners. Linda Oakes from the Health Department. This agreement before you and the next one on the agenda concerns the WIC program. I just want to do a quick review of what WIC is, since we have a new commissioner and a fairly new commissioner. So the WIC program is, in a nutshell, you come in, you see a dietitian, you get a card for food that you can take to the grocery store. It's like a debit card, and get nutritious food. You get nutrition education and counseling. So that's the short version. So we do serve women that are pregnant, postpartum, or breastfeeding, infants up to 1 year of age, children ages 1 to 5. So we provide nutrition education, referrals to other healthcare services. That's a really important part of what we do. A lot of people come in and need doctors or other services, so we maintain referrals for them. And then the supplemental foods, which is a prescribed food package of nutritious foods. To be on this program, you must meet those requirements I just mentioned to be in those categories. You must live in Kansas, but if you live in a surrounding county and you work here, you can be on WIC here for your convenience. You must be at nutritional risk. We have a big, long list of nutritional risk factors, and you must meet income requirements. Now, the income requirements for this program are fairly liberal. It is 185% of the poverty level, which for a family of 4, they can make $47,638 to be on the program. So we're receiving about $1.1 million to administer the WIC program for about 6,000 participants in Shawnee, Osage, and Waubonsee counties. We employ 6 dietitians, an RN, a full-time breastfeeding peer counselor position. It's actually 2 breastfeeding peer counselors, 6.25 clerical, a team leader, and part of the division manager over this program. The economic impact of WIC in Shawnee County: WIC generated $2.8 million in sales at Shawnee County businesses in 2018. So why is WIC important? So WIC is a national program from the Department of Agriculture, a little different than a lot of our other programs at the Health Department, which tend to be Health and Human Services. And it is very closely studied. They do a lot of studies about WIC and WIC participants. So they have found that WIC can reduce household food insecurity by at least 20%. And we know from presentations that we've had recently, 1 in 5 children in Shawnee County are food insecure. WIC also is helping with the obesity crisis, and this was an article in the newspaper just a couple weeks ago, an editorial that talked about the WIC program as one program that can help with the obesity crisis. In 2010, there was a major change to the food package, and since that time, nationally, we have seen a decrease in obesity among children on WIC. So we do believe that those are very important. Also, WIC improves birth outcomes. We see lower infant mortality rates in WIC participants, especially among African Americans. We see a lower risk of preterm birth, low birth weight, and NICU admissions. So another really interesting fact about WIC is half of all babies born in Shawnee County and nationally are on WIC. So we do see a lot of our citizens through our WIC program. So that is a quick review of WIC. The first contract is our contract with Wabunsee County. We've been providing WIC services there since the 60s, a long time. So we would like to continue that relationship. All money that goes into WIC is paid by Kansas Department of Health and Environment. There is no local tax dollars that go into the WIC program. They pay for everything. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about Wabunsee, about the WIC program at this point, Tails. But at some point in that time, they did not have enough food to eat. There was not enough food in the household for them to eat the recommended calories that we recommend for the age groups. So the USDA does all that figuring. We did the food deserts, you might remember too, and we're going to be talking about food deserts again in the next few weeks. So that's what they look at, is food insecure, not having enough food to meet their basic requirements.
Mr. Cook?
WIC protections to guard against fraud or maybe being used for inappropriate items, and what does your office do to kind of help educate on what's appropriate and what's not?
So we do a lot of education on what's appropriate, but the beauty of the WIC debit cards is that you can no longer buy something that's not a WIC-approved item. It's all set up with the UPC codes. It has to be in the system. So when we had paper checks, it was up to the clerks to kind of try to police that at the grocery stores. Well, this is a WIC item, but this is not. No longer. It's that specific food. So the state sets those up. We do not. As far as fraud on our end, we do income checks. We have certain documentation that we have to see in order to determine if they're income eligible. And we do have audits. We have state audits. We have federal audits to make sure we're following all those regulations.
And then why do we administer Wabunsee County's program and Osage and other counties? Why don't they administer their own programs?
Well, that's a good question, because we've been doing that for a very long time. I think part of the reason is it's easier for us. They don't need a full-time dietitian, but you have to have a registered dietitian administer at least part of the program, the nutrition counseling and setting the nutrition risks. So we can send a dietitian, for instance, for Wabunsee, we send a dietitian twice a month to Wabunsee County for a day to see those clients. And Osage, we send once a week. So it's just more efficient for us to do that since there's such a small population. And that's pretty common across the state that a larger county will administer WIC in surrounding counties. So it's been a great partnership with both counties. You don't see the Osage contract yet because it's not quite done. It will be coming very soon.
I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Mays? I move that we approve.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item G2, consider authorization and execution of contract C366-2019 with Kansas Department of Health and Environment for the Women, Infants, and Children to provide WIC breastfeeding peer counselor program services in Shawnee, Osage, and Wabunsee counties for a total allocation of $1,183,508 for the period of October 1, 2019 through September 30th, 2020.
Linda Oaks from the Health Department again. There's actually a typo in. This is the contract for the entire program, not just the breastfeeding peer counselor program, and I just caught that. So this is the whole contract for that program, and I would be happy to answer any more questions.
I move that we approve.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next item.
Item H, Commission Number 1, consider canceling the October 17th commission meeting.
I'll move for approval.
Second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next.
Item 5, Administrative Communications.
Okay, we take this time for public input and our staff input as well. Mr. Luby.
He qualifies.
Good morning, Commissioners. Randy Luby, Parks and Recreation. As you're aware, tomorrow is going to be our Shawnee County United Way Golf Tournament, but and I'm one of these golfers that are more of a fair weather golfer, and it's going to be awful cold, so we're moving it back 1 week to next Friday, the 18th, I believe. It's supposed to be close to 70 degrees, and looking forward to it. There is still time to get a team in. If this weekend didn't work or this date didn't work and next one would, feel free to get a hold of me or the golf course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Angela Lewis with Human Resources. Now that we have all the prices set for our benefits, we would like to announce our open enrollment meeting dates. Open enrollment will be the last 2 weeks of October. We will have our first annual enrollment meeting October 21st, which is a Monday from 1 to 3 at Reynolds Lodge out at Lake Shawnee. On October 22nd, we'll have 2 different times at the Adult Detention Center in Training Room A from 10 to 11 and then from 1 to 2. On the 23rd, which is a Wednesday, we'll have from 6:30 to 9:30 at the North Annex and then from 1 to 3 here at the courthouse, and Thursday, the 24th, from 9 to 10 at the Health Department and from 1 to 4 at the Law Enforcement Center. And we will be sending communications out to all of our employees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Lynn Lee. I'm the epidemiologist at the Health Department. In my line of work, I find that all health issues are really, really important, but there are a few that is very dear to me, and I'd like to share this month's newsletter with you. This month's newsletter is about youth suicide. So a little bit about suicide just in general. This time last year, I wrote about suicide rates in Shawnee County. I looked at Shawnee County, I looked at Kansas, I looked at the United States, and just a quick summary. Shawnee County has higher rates of suicide comparative to Kansas and the United States. And this month, I wanted to look at youth specifically. And so, as you can see here on the graph, this is the suicide rate among youth ages 10 to 24 years of age in Kansas versus the United States. So the blue line is us here in Kansas, and the United States is the red line. So as you can see, Kansas, we fluctuate. Some years we go up, some years we go down. These are rolling rates, but ultimately it's an increasing trend line. You're welcome to read the newsletter from last year. I have a link there for you. The reason why I wanted to look at young people was because not only young people, their deaths impact us emotionally, but it's also the fact that we lose young talent, economically speaking, and suicide, years of life lost, is impacted especially among young people. So what about Shawnee County? I'm a little tribal, so I always think about Shawnee County. So in terms of Shawnee County, I requested death records from the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, and I looked at the death records between the years of 2008 and 2017, so 10 years worth. And in Shawnee County, we've lost 43 young people. Quick stats for that is that over half of them, so 60% of them were males. 75% of them were white, non-Hispanic. And among the males, 58% of them died by firearms. In terms of methods of death, it does vary between very young people, so the ages of 10 to 19. It's an equal split between firearms and hanging. And then among the older youths, so the 20 to 24, 50% of them died by firearms. So here's the pie chart for that. So of all of our kids, the 43 that have died, the majority of them died by firearms here in the orange. So I wanted to look at the burden of suicide among youth and young people in Shawnee County. And so I took the analogy of the iceberg. And so the picture to the right at the top is I looked at 2 years' worth of 2017 and 2018. We've lost 16 young people to suicide. But then I looked at hospital records. I wanted to know, well, how many ED visits were suicide related? And you can see it's roughly 800 during that time period. But even still, like, how many more of unreported self-harm attempts? How many of our kids are thinking about it? And so to look at that question, I use the Kansas Communities That Care Student Survey. It's a survey that's been around a long time, and it's administered at the school level. And so the data for this year shows that for middle school students, so I looked at, well, how many students have thought about it, how many students have made plans, and how many students have tried. And so it's just a comparison between the middle school and the high school, and so you can see that there is a number of students that do think about it. So 2019, middle school students, around 30% of students have thought about it. 20% of them have made a plan, and around 11% of them have tried. Now, this is a convenient survey, sample survey, and so that just means that it's not every student in Shawnee County has taken this survey. So please don't fixate on the actual numbers itself. It's just to show you that of the students that did take it, there are students, even among middle school students, that are struggling, that are thinking about it, that are depressed, that are sad. So people ask me quite a lot, actually, of like, why? Why did these students die? And the truth is, I don't know why. But it's hard and it's complicated. And so the Kansas State of Child Death Review Board, they publish a annual report each year, and they look at all of the students who die between the ages of, actually under the age of 18. And so there's a section on suicide. And what they found was that the highest listed recent crisis, so like life stressors that happened right before they died, family discord, recent argument with parents, with their significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, was listed as the highest recent crisis among the students that died. And the other ones were uses of drugs and alcohol, being a victim of bullying, a history of suicide by a friend or a relative. Those were also listed as recent crises in their life. And so other things, people ask me, like, well, what are the risk factors? What should we be looking out for? I will say, of my research, there is not one consistent document that will list all of the risk factors out there. And SAMHSA, they produced a toolkit for schools, and it's about 3 pages long for risk factors. And so I just cherry-picked a few to highlight. And so a few is known history of mental illness, a loss of a family member or friend to suicide, adverse life circumstances such as like not doing well in school, a recent breakup, parental divorce, a victim of being bullied, access to lethal means as well. I wanted to leave by saying that I struggle with coming up here because I feel like every time you see me, I'm always sharing something like negative about Shawnee County, and I'm like, man, one of these days I'm going to share something positive about Shawnee County. It's not that at all. I don't want to not come up here and say that it's not an issue. It is. Our youth are struggling, and as you can see from the trend lines, youth suicide is an issue, even at the national level. But the good thing is that Shawnee County and a few other agencies is definitely doing stuff, and so Family Services and Guidance Center, Shawnee County as a health department, we're definitely having conversations with other agencies and in how to address this issue. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions you have.
When you were researching the data and going out and looking at not just the number of suicides, but the 800, the iceberg effect.
Yeah.
Were you seeing that information or that data is really spread evenly across the county? Do we find it concentrated more in affluent areas as opposed to maybe less affluent? Is it were you seeing trends in data?
The data that I have access to has very limited information. That is definitely something that I want to look into a little bit more. I definitely need more help in terms of permission from, say, the hospitals, and also just being able to get some case records, because I do want to know, like, where do they live, and what are their social economic statuses, and all the things that you asked.
I think that would be crucial for the school districts that are working one-on-one. And the 7 Cups program that's been initiated is a great resource for students. But looking at, is Washburn Rural struggling more than Topeka High? Is
Right.
Topeka West struggling more than Seaman? Really just to be able to look at that trends and analysis and looking at those comparisons to see where, the effort needs to be placed. But it's just whether or not it's evenly spread across the entire county.
Right. Thank you.
The 7 Cups program, has this been used in other communities with success? And
I am not sure how long other communities have been using it, but I do know that in California they definitely do use it, in San Francisco. And so it's young people, they are tech savvy, and so I think that this is a option for them, and I think more communities are trying to use like apps. This is not the only app that I've heard of, but this is something that is being kind of piloted here in Shawnee County. So,
Are there programs that the school districts are doing individually within their own areas?
that I do not know. However, I do know that the Family Services and Guidance Center, their student forums are representatives from each school district. And so what happens is a bunch of students come together quarterly, and they meet collectively, and they talk about what they want to do as a group, but also what they can bring to their own schools.
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Cook?
Just noting that while the courts may be closed on Monday, we are here. So,
Mr. Mays?
I just wanted to comment, I had my first Expo Center, Stormont Vale Event Center meeting yesterday, and had the opportunity to get a tour of the construction. It is really coming along. They had almost 100% of the seats swapped out in the Landon Arena, and it's looking completely different. All of the green is now gone. So it's I encourage anybody to, if you get a chance to go in there to a Pilots game or something, check it out.
Well, I attended Claire's Courtyard. I believe Commissioner Mays was there as well. They had the ribbon cutting for Claire's Courtyard. It's kind of a unique little space. It's just outside the little deli that they have at the library, and it's kind of like a little miniature amphitheater. And if you get a chance, go by there and take a look at it. It's a nice addition to the library. Also attended the Kansas Children's Service League breakfast. Got to hear what all they were have been doing in the past year, and they do a very, very good, important service to the community as well. That's it. Next, we have
Item 6, executive session.
we do have a need for executive session, so motion to go into executive session for a period not to exceed 20 minutes to discuss 2 items. One, for consultation with an attorney for the public body or agency to which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship, specifically to discuss pending litigation not to exceed 10 minutes. And 2, to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel, specifically to discuss the pay scale for certain unclassified and classified employees not to exceed 10 minutes. No action is expected at this time.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor? Say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. We are now in executive session.
He said what? 20 minutes, yes. They can just go
Ms.
ahead.
Beck, I informed Commissioner Mays that we are not allowed to leave until you say we can.
I already told him, so you've got the ones with, there's like multiple ones with multiple signatures, so he'll give them to you and.
Okay.
We are back from executive session, no action taken, meeting adjourned.
Did the DA tell you that you couldn't leave?
So did someone else.
I went out there, I told him, I said, I was looking for Susie, and I saw Mike sit there, I said,